Good day, everyone. So, we'll have a new lesson for today, which is character types. So, last lesson or the last module, I asked you to read and also answer the activities were all about the elements of a short story. And in the elements, we have the characters. And in the characters, we have what we call the antagonist and the protagonist characters. Now, going deeper, let's talk about character types. So, in a literary piece, we have 7 common character types. These are the flat, the round, dynamic, static, stuck, foil, and confident. So let's first talk about what do we mean by a round or a flat character. So the authors of stories, or you as authors, must decide how much detail are we going to include on each character. How are we going to characterize that certain character? Are we going to give uh, many details up to the smallest point, like how many strands of hair, or are we going to only to give a very vague description on that character? So in identifying what are the round and flat characters, here are some questions to consider. First of all, which characters are most important, and how will giving detail or not giving detail about that character affect the story? So when we say a character is a round character, it's described thoroughly, in depth, with many details. As well-rounded characters, they are cold round characters. So if the details are very vivid to the point that you can imagine the looks, the shape, the smell, or the sound of a character, then therefore it is a round character. So the main character is in a story is almost always going to be a round character. So if you are reading a story and you feel like you know a character extremely well, then most likely the character is round. Next, so this is the flat character. So basically, it's the opposite of the round character. So flat characters are those characters that are not described too much. They have a few details in them only. So here are examples. So as we can see here, this is an example of a flat character. Only a 2D image, two-dimensional image. While an example of a round character, we have here a 3D image having much more details. Yeah. So if you draw a two-dimensional flat picture of a house, for example, you can only see one side of it. You cannot see 3 or 4 sides. Unlike in the 3D or in the round character, you can see more details or more sides. Yeah. So as a reader, judge whether or not the character is round or flat by trying to write down the characteristics of the character. Yeah. So you can easily identify what if the character is a round character or flat character by answering simple questions such as, what do you know about the character? If your list is long with many characteristics, then of course more details, meaning round character. Less details, meaning it is a flat character. Next, what do we mean by a static, or what do we mean by a dynamic character? So the key word when dealing the difference between static and dynamic character is the word change. So the type of change, though is specific, we are only concerned with internal changes which occur within the character. Within. So we can differentiate a static character to a dynamic character if there is a reflection, if the character has changed in some form of way inside of himself, meaning his attitude, his way of life, not physically. If let's say a character was blinded or lost a limb, an arm, a leg, so this is not considered in a dynamic character. So internal changes include a change in his or her personality, outlook in life, values, or overall nature of the character. So do not focus on the changes that happen to a character. Okay? So not outside changes, but inside changes. Ano? Yan. So think about this way. Does the event affect the character by changing the character internally? So now let's move on. So what do we really mean by static character? So static meaning not moving or not changing. So in order for a character to be static, the character must remain basically the same throughout the entire story. So when we say that character is a static character, it means that throughout the story, he did not change internally, meaning to say, from beginning up to the end, he was the protagonist, or up to the beginning to the end, he was the antagonist, he was a side character, and so on and so forth. So he did not change dramatically. Ano? So the character does not undergo any internal changes. Again, the keyword is internal. If the change is physical, let's say losing a limb, having eyesight again, and so on and so forth, it's not part of static or dynamic characters. Ano? We are only going to focus on the internal change. So think of a static characterization like plastic surgery. The character may change in looks, but unless his personality is affected, the character is static. So no matter how many physical change the character has, becoming more beautiful, becoming more handsome, or becoming ugly, turning into a frog, and so on and so forth, if their attitude or their way of life did not change at all, it is considered as a static character. So let's say at the beginning they were kind and up to the end they were still kind, or they were evil and up to the end they were evil, they are a static character. So of course, dynamic is the opposite of static characters. So these characters are characters that undergo internal change. So they change dramatically internally. From the beginning up to the end, something changed in them. Let's say he was good, then he became evil, or vice versa. Ano? Or he was forgiving, then he is now hateful, or vice versa. Yan. So that in a dynamic character's change is usually crucial to the story itself. So when a dynamic character has some kind of change, usually it is part of a part of the plot. So say a main character goes through a life-altering experience, such as a race car driver getting into an accident. If the driver's personality changes, let's say he promises that he would never race again, so that is a change in his life, in his habit, then therefore it is considered as a dynamic character. So here are some questions to consider when looking at a character and identifying whether they are static or dynamic. So how does the character feel about him, her, or itself? How does the character act towards the others? And what is the character's goal? So try to ask that in the beginning of the story, then ask it again at the end of the story. So if there is a change, then it is a dynamic character. If there are no changes, then it is a static character. Yeah, so static, no change within the character. Dynamic, the character changes internally. Next is a stock character. So when we say a stock character, this is a flat character. Okay? So again, a flat character is a character with few details. So we do not know him or her completely. We don't know the color of his eyes, the sound of his voice, but we know his body shape, his age. So flat characters, few details. But this time, when we say a stock character, it is a special flat character that it is easily recognizable to us readers. So they are stereotypical characters. For example, ruthless businessman, uh, hooligans, let's say yung villain, di ba? Usually, in cartoons, the villain has a hooligan or katulong, di ba? The helper, the grunt, kumbaga. So the shushing old white-haired librarian. So in stories, in shows, when you imagine a librarian, what is the first thing that you can imagine? Someone old, someone quiet, and so on and so forth. You don't imagine the librarian being handsome, being intelligent, being so on and so forth. Usually, it is an old and quiet person. So that's stereotyping. That's an example of a stock character. So they are not focused characters, nor they are developed in the story. So they are only here to have background or filler roles. So of course, for example, if the setting of the story is a um, community canteen where people eat, so of course there are multiple characters there, not only the main characters and the villains. So of course, we have their stock characters to fill some of the roles. For example, who would be the one selling this, who would be the one giving the water, who would be the one acting as the waiter, the waitress, and so on and so forth. So they are stock characters. So they are not essential to the story. They are only there to fulfill background or filler roles. Next is foil character. So this is a special kind of character who is used to enhance another character through contrast. So this kind of character, he is only used or he is only there to show emphasis on a certain character by giving a comparison. For example, the main character is strong, handsome, and so on and so forth. How can we really give focus on his handsomeness or his strength? So by having a character opposite to him, having an ugly and a very weak character, which is always being compared to him. So that is a foil character. Examples include, so the stepsisters, contrast to Cinderella. Ayan. So they are not focused characters, nor are they developed in the story. Again, so we do not see much of them. They only are there to help us learn more about another character or aspect of a story. So for example, in the story of Cinderella, although the stepsisters are the antagonists, they are the ones being mean to Cinderella. The main character or the main antagonist considered to be the antagonist of Cinderella is the stepmother. She is the main antagonist. The stepsisters are only foil characters. They are only there for us to have a comparison how sweet or how good Cinderella is, personality wise. Yan. Next is the confidante character or confidant character. So this character is basically the character's BFF or best friend. This is the character in which the antagonist, the protagonist, the main character, it totally trusts that the character, he or she may tell his secrets, his worries to in order to have someone listen to him or her. Yan. So it is a special kind of character who the main character confides in. So the main character confides, they reveal qualities, personalities, thoughts, and feelings. Yeah. So a confidant again helps us learn more about our central or main character. So the purpose of foil and confidant are similar. They help us learn more more about the character or another character, but how they do it are different. A foil acts as a opposite of the character being compared to. A confidant, it is the character that knows many things about the other character because he or she trusts that confidant character. So that's all for our lesson for today about the 7 common types of characters. So I hope you understand. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So that is all. Goodbye and thank you.